My testimony is that God is faithful. And I think many people don't understand just that. We say that, but we don't understand how faithful He is. Now, in my testimony, I'm just as much to blame as the person that I was involved with. I have been celibate for at least 5 years and was living a godly lifestyle when I met a man that was a famous man. And when I met him, I wasn't really interested in him. I wasn't even looking at him or considering him to be anything more than just a person I met at that moment. I had no intentions and no plans on anything going further than that day. And I remember during that day, the Lord spoke to me because I was heavily serving God and heavily doing the things of God. And I remember that day, that man was standing there and the Lord began to minister to me about him, and He showed me some things, and I just thought to myself, wow, okay, I guess God wants me to minister to him. And that's what I thought it would be. So afterwards, I introduced myself to this gentleman and just kind of wanted to give him the word of the Lord. But I knew it wasn't time yet because of the setting, which was a TV show that he was basically the star of. So I knew it wasn't the right time. Turns out he was extremely interested in me. And I wasn't looking for anyone like him. I wasn't interested necessarily, but I noticed him. So he asked me out on a date. We got in contact with each other about a month later after that first initial encounter. And he asked me out on a date. And I remember being kind of surprised how fast he was moving, because I just thought, wow, I only met you one time. That's kind of interesting. So I took him up on that, and I thought this would be the opportunity to minister to him. So I took it. We went to dinner, and I sent a message to my intercessors and my people around me that pray, and just kind of let them know, hey, I'm going on a date, and just, wanted to be accountable for my own actions for myself. And I remember we went on a date. And the date was pretty nice. I mean, he was a little weird. He showed up he looked kind of like he had just finished working out or something, and here I am dressed, pretty nice, and he looks like he just walked out of a gym. I mean, it was weird. But he took me out, and, again, I kind of still had the same feelings, like I had before. Like I wasn't necessarily in love or thinking this guy was anything more than just who I met. So we continued to talk and stayed in contact with each other, and, a relationship started to form. Now, how many of you know that whatever happens in the spirit realm, whatever happens to you in the natural, should I say, always starts in the spirit realm? And after I met this man, I started having weird encounters where things would start showing up in my sleep, things trying to come after me suddenly, things trying to sleep with me suddenly in my sleep. It felt like there was something trying to rape me in my sleep. It was crazy. And I would try to go to men and women of God about it, and they really didn't know what it was. They were just kind of just rebuke it, or just go ahead around it. And they all meant well. Those were true things to do, but how many of you know some things you need to fight? And you need to understand what it is that's fighting you so you can properly fight it back. So needless to say, that whole just rebuke it approach was not the right way to go. Ultimately, a relationship, it formed with this man, much to not necessarily my understanding or my agreement, but it was more like a settling. Like a settling. Okay, yeah, all right, he's not bad type of deal. And I saw things about him. I knew there were things about him that were red flags, that were wrong, but I ignored them. And I kept going and finding myself deeper and deeper and deeper into this relationship with this man. Ultimately, it turned into something physical, which was something that caught me off guard. I wasn't prepared to do that, having had been celibate for 5 years. You can't be celibate that long and still really be fighting with temptation. Usually if you're celibate that long, you're pretty used to it, like you're okay. So at least that's how I felt. My guard was way down. I felt very comfortable. And before I knew it, I was in a physical relationship with this man. And by then, I was in love. Or whatever I thought I was. It wasn't love, but what I thought I was. And the relationship kept going, and we continued, and I saw myself go from the woman of God to quickly back to the world, back to hanging out, back to bars, doing stuff I really was not doing. How many of you also know that when you intertwine your body with somebody, you not only form soul ties, but you become them? And I was finding myself having dark thoughts like him, and just different type of thinking and acting and being. I was different. I wasn't at all myself. I had become like him. So I'm thinking in my heart, this relationship is going to go somewhere. We're really enjoying each other. We're really in love. This is something big. I mean, just completely delusional. Like I didn't see it for what it was anymore. But you don't see things for what they are when you're blinded. And I knew sexually it was wrong, so I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to disobey God, but I was already caught up in this relationship. So I did try to stop. I did. I found myself trying to stop and pull away from him. And that seemed to anger him or offend him, because it was like a rejection, like, how dare you walk away from me? And I thought I was just trying to obey God. Even though I'd already fallen and fell into sin, I wanted to try to get it right, get it together. So we ended up getting back together again. Even though I had repented and tried to go to the Lord and say I wasn't going to do it anymore, I tried to. I repented, and I ended up within a month getting back with him and starting the physical aspect of it all over again. But this time he was different. This time he was on an assignment. This time he was cold and malicious. It was more like you're not going to be able to walk away from me this time. Shortly after that encounter with him, the pandemic started. The COVID pandemic. So we all were going into lockdown in our lives. And while I was packing up my stuff to go into lockdown, because I had just moved into my new home, suddenly I got a phone call from a gentleman, which was him. And he was calling to tell me a lie that he wanted me to basically co-sign. And the lie was that he had another woman. And the woman found out about me. And the woman decided she didn't like it, and she was basically forcing him to confront me in front of her. And instead of him being honest and telling her the truth, he was lying to her, hoping that I would just go along with the lie. And of course, I'm blindsided by the fact that here's this woman, he's in this relationship that, and I'm like, wait, so I wouldn't lie for him. And it made him angry. Made him very angry. To the point where it turned into a big fight between us. So he decided, because of that, or he had already made his decision, but he used that as a way to say, I'm going to choose to be with her, and I'm not going to be with you. And he just abruptly ended what I thought was a relationship